welcome back to Sinister Sisters.
Hello!
Welcome to the Fun Friday episode for this week. I am Kat, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Shrimp!
and again, we appear to be in a silly, goofy mood this Fun Friday episode.
Just in a silly, goofy mood.
That's silly. How do we normally introduce these? This feels extra awkward.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, welcome
Hello
everyone.
and welcome back to Sinister Sisters. My name is Shrimp and this is Kat, and we are going to tell you about something today that you're going to listen to and not complain about.
Yeah, you got to learn with us.
Woo!
So today, I am going to be talking about.
Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a
Bro.
Get Ready. Sorry.
Get
Silly,
out of the
goofy
silly,
mood.
goofy mood and get into
Okay.
a focused listening mood.
I probably have ADHD. I can't do that. Anyways,
Thing.
let's
Anyway,
get into it. Skitty.
so today's episode, we're going to be talking about the science behind video game addiction. This is an interesting topic to me because I know a lot of people who play a lot of video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting to understand more where that comes from and, at what point it is actually considered to be an addiction. So
Cool beans.
I will start out by just giving like a quick overview of addiction in general. And I will just note here that a lot of times when we're talking about a drug addiction, we more modernly would say substance misuse disorder. It seems that sort of verbiage hasn't crossed over into the other sorts of categories of addiction that aren't substance related. So I will be using the word addiction throughout, but just I am aware that it's a little bit more appropriate to call them substance misuse disorders. So
Okay.
yes.
Video game misuse disorders.
Yeah, but that's like not how it's referred to anywhere. So
No, and it sounds silly,
This
so.
doesn't make sense, yeah. Much of the existing literature around addiction really focuses on the substance misuse side of things. It's kind of, I think, what we commonly think of when we think of addiction. But there's a lot of newer research showing that there are a wide variety of things that can cause addiction type of reactions or behaviors in people. And so we'll learn more about that, I'm sure, in the coming years.
Yeah.
So when substance misuse was first being researched and studied in the 1930s, the overwhelming view in society was that these behaviors came from some sort of moral failing or lack of willpower in the individual.
Oh, gross.
And when we were first researching and studying substance misuse, it often was viewed as some sort of moral failing. And so that was really the predominant idea in society as well, that these behaviors didn't necessarily come from some sort of mental illness or that sort of thing, but they were really just something that an individual was doing wrong.
That's gross.
It is. Yeah. But there has been tons of research done in the years since the 1930s, and now we really much better understand that, there's lots of mental and brain processes that are going on, and we understand that addiction or substance misuse causes actual physical changes in your brain, and oftentimes the actions that are happening are more compulsive in nature and not really a choice.
Right. I'm glad we're there now. We're not still thinking people are weak. That's gross.
I mean, there's still definitely a long way to go. There is a lot of misunderstanding, I would say, in society about substance use, and also say things like an alcohol misuse disorder is very difficult to overcome because alcohol is so deeply ingrained in society. And if you choose not to drink, like, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you go out with some friends and you just don't feel like having a drink. And they're all like,
yes.
Oh, why? What's wrong? And especially as women, often it's like, are you pregnant? Like, blah, blah, blah. And that's just, it's gross. Sometimes we just don't want to poison ourselves for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we do.
And I can't drink anyways because of the medication that I take.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, that has been a conversation with few people. Like, no, I don't want to come to your party because I'm just going to be the only sober person there. Well, I can get you, do you like apple cider? It's like, yes, I do, but that's not the point. The point is that I physically can't for my health.
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to make me do something that's gonna make me ill? Anyways, that's my tangent today.
It's a very
my health.
interesting topic, and I think that there is still some thought in society that there is some sort of like that moral failing piece comes in, especially when you're talking more hard drugs. A lot of people are not as understanding about those.
Yeah, that they did it themselves, right?
Yeah, definitely.
People think that they did, but they didn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's don't understand.
I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, it's a very multifaceted issue, but
definitely
video game addiction would fall into a category called behavioral addictions or processing addictions. So video game addiction itself is not actually officially recognized in the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic manual that's used by the American Psychiatric Association. It's kind of like considered the gold star. There is other diagnostic manuals out there, but that's sort of the main one that's used, especially in North America. And so essentially it's just a giant fat book with lists of all sorts of mental illnesses. It's split into different categories.
How often do they update?
So the original version of the DSM-5 I think came out in the early 2000s, and then they do like reviews on it periodically. So they actually recently just did a review on it. So it's not an entire new manual, but they just look at things through different lenses.
And add things and stuff?
They might add, they might take things away. Like, for example, in the DSM-4, being homosexual was considered a mental illness in that one, or maybe the DSM-3, one or the other. It was just recently taken out. So, yeah, there are some things that they'll add. They will take things out, depending on the new research that comes out.
That's good.
Yeah, so video game addiction has been put on, they keep a list of conditions requiring further research. So it has been put on that list. There have been proposed criteria kind of put aside as to what would consider someone to have a video game addiction, but it's just not officially integrated yet. But we may well see it in maybe the next edition or the next.
Yeah, it's like being looked at.
Yeah. And of course, research on things like this often takes a really long time. So I would imagine that they'll come out with more information about it in the coming years, but it is something pretty new. Behavioral addictions are an official category, though. Gambling addiction is the only officially recognized diagnosis within that category. But there are a list of others that could potentially be in there, including, obviously, video game addictions. Behavioral addictions often follow a very similar pattern of behaviors as those substance misuse disorders. They often result in individuals neglecting other important things in their lives, such as relationships, employment, or self-care, in order to chase that, quote, high that is associated with the behaviors that they're engaging in.
Yes.
Some warning signs of a behavioral addiction include spending the majority of your time engaging in the behavior, thinking about or arranging to engage in the behavior, or recovering from the effects of engaging in the behavior, becoming dependent on the behavior as a way to cope with emotions and to feel, quote, normal, continuing despite physical and or mental harm, having trouble cutting back despite wanting to stop, neglecting work, school, or family to engage in the behavior more often, experiencing symptoms of withdrawal, for example, depression or irritability when trying to stop, and minimizing or hiding the extent of the problem from others.
Okay.
So video game addictions have been specifically of particular concern for parents, especially as we find that more and more games are targeted towards children. And there is some growing concern as to how video games may affect the brains of children. And so, there's some research being done on that topic. I think
but it takes time.
It takes time. And I think the kind of main findings from a lot of the research is that it really depends on the person on an individual level and other things that they have in their lives that would sort of prevent it from becoming an addiction.
Right.
So research.
So it's like hard to put like a pin in it,
Yeah.
Because it's very individualized.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like all video games are bad for all children. It's like it could be. There's a number of factors that would go into where it might be of concern.
Great. That makes it so much easier.
So fun and easy.
Love that.
Yeah. So research shows that somewhere between 1 and 16% of people who play video games could fall into the category of having a video game addiction. But since the video game addiction itself isn't actually officially recognized in the DSM, what constitutes as an addiction will vary from place to place and from, clinician to clinician if you're being assessed for it.
Yeah.
What seems to be agreed on, however, is that it's not really important what the frequency of playtime of a game would be, but the function that video games play in the person's life. If games are simply more of a recreational activity and they're taken part in when other tasks have been completed, or as a way to sort of like do something of enjoyment after work, say, or that sort of thing.
Decompress.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a need for concern at that point. However, if video games are chosen in favor of other activities, then we may be approaching an addiction, especially if it's activities that would be good for you. So, things like cooking, cleaning, exercise, spending time with your loved ones, then that might be coming to a point.
Going to work.
Yeah, exactly. There are also other harmful effects that video games and video game overusage can have on individuals. So there is some research that suggests that there is increased aggressive thoughts and aggressive behaviors after playing video games, particularly in children under the age of 10. Increased risk of light-induced seizures, musculoskeletal disorders at the upper extremities, and increased metabolic rate. There is also a risk of reduced pro-social or cooperative behaviors in sort of in-person real-life social interactions. And we do also see sometimes increased ADHD symptoms and lowered mental health and cognitive functioning among people who are really playing games a lot.
That's not good.
No. Some skeptics of the possibility of video game addiction note that it's actually pretty rare for gamers to display symptoms of disorder, especially that withdrawal piece. So if you quit playing, you don't often see, the physical withdrawals especially, and also kind of increased tolerance need. So this leads some people to believe that what we are seeing as an addiction to video games could actually be a sign of something else, possibly depression, some avoidance behaviors, or just a habit that someone has built for themselves that maybe isn't the healthiest.
Yes.
So I just want to make a note here that by no means am I trying to portray video games as bad. You see, a lot of the information I've just presented seems pretty doom and gloom, but I do believe that there are, some positive roles that video games do play in the lives of many people. So online gaming specifically was very, very helpful during the pandemic, for example. It helped people to both build and strengthen existing relationships that they had in, regular life that you weren't able to see in person. I did a lot of that during the pandemic, playing sort of like co-op party games with friends, because that's all we could do together.
Yeah.
We are also seeing some kind of emerging evidence or more recent studies that show that video games may actually have positive effects on the intelligence levels of children. Video games promote usage of skills like problem solving, critical thinking, decision making, active listening skills, and collaborative communication. Those skills can really be developed in the children that maybe potentially would be playing, and the adults, of course. And also, video games are fun. People play them for a reason.
Definitely.
And so, they can be a really good hobby. And especially for people maybe who are more introverted and who maybe wouldn't want to do some of the more traditional social activities, like going out, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it really helps those sorts of people to have a hobby and to create some friendships in the online space that can be very real and legitimate and positive influences in their lives.
Definitely.
So what exactly makes video games so addicting? This is, again, very multifaceted, as most of this topic is. So first of all, I think it's important to note that the video game industry is massive. In 2020, it was estimated to be a $90 billion industry.
Oh my god.
Yeah. On average,
$90 billion.
$90 billion. Just huge.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and I think, I didn't write down the statistic, but I think I read that something like 95% of students, high school and elementary school students, play a video game of some sort every week. So very, very much ingrained in life in general.
Yeah.
On average, people who play video games play for about 6 hours per week. So, I would say that's very much in the time frame of being a recreational activity. Other hobbies would take up that same sort of amount of time as well. So, also, I think important to note is that the smartphone has actually officially surpassed both computers and consoles as the leading video game device. So video games are very much more accessible and available at literally at your fingertips at all times.
Literally, yeah. Wherever you are, because you always have your phone with you.
That was really interesting to me because I kind of don't like cell phone games. They're annoying. You have to watch a million ads.
Yeah.
But they are
right?
addictive. Or they feel addictive.
Yes. Like, I hate cell phone games having to play, having to have energy to do things. Because I play The Sims a lot. And, The Sims Mobile, you need, energy, or you have to, buy coins or whatever. Right. Why am I doing this? This is not what The Sims is. Yeah. But I can definitely see. I played, Best Fiends for a long time. And it was so fun to, be able to connect the things, and when you get to another level.
This episode was sponsored by Best Fiends. They were everywhere for a little while. I feel like literally every influencer was sponsored by Best Fiends, seemingly for no reason, because I don't watch any video game YouTubers or anything like that. So
me neither.
Always came across on the lifestyle influencers, the beauty sphere, really don't actually play.
Yeah. Why are you promoting a cell phone game?
That's a side note.
That would be a good Friday topic about influencer marketing and subliminal messages and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Add that to the list. Studies show that most people who would meet the criteria or the proposed criteria for a video game addiction are playing massive multiplayer online role-playing games. So RPGs. I think most people call them MMOs, to be honest with you. So these are things like World of Warcraft, League of Legends, Fortnite, things like that. So these games are actually...
Fortnite. Sorry.
These games seem to be especially addictive as they essentially create this endless fantasy world, specifically World of Warcraft and League of Legends, that allows you to live a totally different life completely online. They allow the players to escape from reality and have an opportunity to feel welcomed and valued in a community, which is something that they may not be experiencing in real life. Right now. As I touched on earlier, a lot of people build some very real, true friendships through these games, and they feel a sense of pride in what they've accomplished, guilds and things like that. And so essentially...
Battle Royale!
Essentially, these online multiplayer games simulate a feeling of acceptance and success, which either people aren't experiencing in their real life at all, or as they invest more and more time into the game itself, they can be moving away from those feelings in their real life. So then it starts to feel like, the online world is the only place where they have that acceptance and success. We often find as well that games like this, are often used by individuals suffering from depression, as you get to escape how you're feeling about yourself in the real world and become somebody different. There's also quite a strong correlation between anxiety disorders and video game addiction, but it's not really clear if the anxiety leads people to play video games or if the video games lead people to display symptoms of anxiety.
That's sad. Yeah. That whole part is sad.
I think so too. And I think that thought is perpetuated a lot in society as well. If you think of someone who plays World of Warcraft, you kind of instantly think of somebody who's, sort of unkempt, living in their mom's
socially
basement.
Awkward.
That's definitely not true. There are probably the majority of players are successful in their real lives, but that simulation of...
This is the stereotype.
And that simulation of sort of instant success that you can get in a game can be somewhat detrimental.
Yes.
Video games are also literally designed to be addictive. Video game designers and manufacturers are looking to make their games as enjoyable as possible, as this drives sales and it builds a community around their products. This is, again, especially true for games like World of Warcraft or Fortnite. World of Warcraft features a monthly subscription cost, so the video game company wants people to be paying that fee.
Invested.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think it's quite a bit of money a month, maybe $15 or $20 a month play.
Oh yeah, so you need like a lot of interest in it to be able to justify paying that.
And then games like Fortnite feature, like, they're free games, but they feature in-app purchases. And so again, you would need to be fairly invested in a game to want to spend money on, you know, the way that your character looks or the way that your guns or whatever look in game. And so that really is the intent for the designers, is to make the game as enjoyable as possible. And also the creation of more people playing brings more people into the game, right? So there are also a variety of features within video game design in general that makes video games inherently addictive. So things like being able to beat your own high score, or reaching 100% completion rate in the game, beating your rivals or your friends. So this means that oftentimes you need to invest some substantial game time in order to grow your skills within the game, so that you can get to that point, being better than your friend or whatever.
Yeah.
We find also that addictive behaviors change the dopamine receptors in your brain, so it changes the way that your brain actually works. So dopamine is the chemical associated with happiness and pleasure in your brain. And in other settings, it's most commonly associated with things like exercise, eating, and sex. All of those can also become addictive. So repeated activation of the dopamine receptors dulls them. And so you actually need to give them more in order to get that same rush that you would have had in the beginning. So who is at most risk for developing a video game addiction? So it seems like there's sort of a category of people who are most likely to turn to video games. So people who are easily bored, have poor relationships with their family members, feel like outcasts at school, or tend towards sensation seeking, are much more likely to be drawn into video games, as they provide something that isn't easily available to them in the real world or in real life. That could be something as simple as entertainment, you know, for those who are easily bored or enjoy more of a thrill. But then it can also get very complex, you know, feelings of worthlessness or not having those strong relationships in the real world. Much more complicated aspects to address. Yeah, it's
sad too.
Again, this might be a bit intense, but it seems like capitalism is targeting vulnerable people to make money, essentially.
Yes.
And again, I don't
I
think that video games are bad. I play video games. A lot of people, my friends, play video games. Shrimp plays video games. Like, it's not a bad thing, I don't think. It's just capitalism, man. It's a very complex thing, obviously, and I would say most people don't have an issue with quitting or stopping to do the things that they need to do, but obviously the potential for addiction is out there. So yeah, just as a final note on the topic itself, I'm going to list in the show notes below some resources that you can access if you feel like you yourself are struggling with video game addiction, or you have a loved one that you're concerned about. And so that'll have some links that you can access some more supports, or what maybe would work to help you overcome that if you feel like that's something that you'd like to change in your life. Yeah.
Vibe.
Just my little helping hands. I couldn't not include that.
You'll be the helping
Indeed. Not really, but
I'm pretty sure my last partner was addicted to video games, so this is interesting. He would get up at literally 5 o'clock in the morning and stay awake until 2, 3 in the morning.
Every day?
Every day. He played sports, he played soccer, and he wouldn't go to games because he needed to get, I don't know what game he was playing, but he needed to unlock the next character or whatever.
Huh. Interesting.
To the point, there was times that we didn't do anything outside of the house because he was playing video games. You know, Fortnite with the Battle Pass, maybe it's called?
Yeah.
And there's seasons of Fortnite, and you have to play a certain amount of hours.
Yes.
Or something to be have enough XP or whatever. The days coming up to that switch when it went from season 4 to season 5 or whatever was like, we didn't talk. He ate cereal or popcorn only. Like, I had to do everything by myself because he didn't want to leave the house. Like, he was literally on Fortnite for most of the day, actually all day, to be able to get that battle pass, like the next season or whatever.
Did he not go to work then?
Not for the past, like, 7 or 8 months, or the last 7 or 8 months of our relationship. No, he didn't.
Oh, wow.
Before that, he did work. His shift was 7 to 3:30, 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., and he would get home at, like, 3:45-ish, and he would play video games from 3:45 sometimes to 2 or 3 in the morning.
Wow.
So he was getting 2 hours of sleep, but it was just so important that battle pass was fulfilled, or the next level was, ready, or his character was whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's intense.
It was. Absolutely. Yes. I want to take a nap, so.
Well, thank you, friends, for listening. We appreciate it.
Yes.
You can find us on Instagram at
Yes.
sinistersisters.podcast. You can send us an email at sinistersisterspod@gmail.com.
Yes, please.
And you can find that information that I mentioned, as well as our case request form down below that you can use to request cases or topics that you would like to hear from us about. So either for our true crime episodes or our Fun Friday episodes, anything that you'd like to know.
We'd like to provide. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.